This is Out of the Box with your host, Jonathan Clark. Out of the Box, Sunday nights at 9 on Q1043.
Sean Van Vleet from Blame My Youth is with us. All the music, tour dates, videos at blamemyyouth.com. Sean, are you at this moment on mushrooms?
Well, if you would have asked me this 10 minutes ago, I would have said no. But I did find a little microdose right before this.
Really?
Yes. I got one for you, too, if you're
okay,
interested.
that's a possibility, but let's get to that a little bit. But where were you born and where did you grow up?
Born in Des Plaines, grew up in Des Plaines, Illinois, which is like basically living at O'Hare Airport. Like we had special windows because the planes were like basically landing on our roof.
Okay.
So we couldn't hear them, but yeah, O'Hare Airport.
Suburban Chicago,
Yep.
basically. Okay.
Northwest suburbs.
Tell me about Chicago. Growing up there, are you still living in Chicago, in the Chicago area?
No. When I was 18, I moved or 19, I moved to the city finally, and then I was kicking around there for like 12 years, and then or 13 years or so. Started a band there. With ping pong. We were called Empires. We were a ping pong ball between New York and LA, just going back and forth, and bartending while I was in the band, and working at UPS, like doing all that.
I worked at UPS once during the holidays. Yeah.
Dude, that's the craziest, absolute craziest.
It was good money at the time.
Same, I agree. And that's the high peak season.
Right.
But that was actually where like I was working at UPS when there's a dude. I was on the sort line. I don't know what you did, but I was on.
Well, I tossed packages into trucks.
You were okay. So
yeah.
Okay, there's a guy named James. I think his name is James. He was tossing the packages in the truck. I was a sort guy. So every time the shift would start, he was a young dude, but he was nuts, and in a great way. But like the conveyors would start rolling, as you know. There's like a little bell, and he would always go. Da, 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 like the Johnny Cash thing, and he'd start doing. That was my introduction to Johnny Cash. But he did this every day, and he'd start singing "Ring of Fire," and I didn't know it, so I was just making up lyrics like to myself, like really quietly, like making up lyrics to "Ring of Fire." And then it was actually working at UPS where I'm like, man, maybe I should just start maybe doing this.
This sounds like a movie.
It is the movie of my life, I guess.
Fantastic. So growing up there in Des Plaines and the Chicago area, what was the music your parents were listening to and what your friends were listening to?
So my dad, I found out my dad could sing because he was singing the song. Man, who does it? It's like Monday, Monday.
Oh, the Mamas and the Papas.
Mamas and the Papas.
Yeah.
My dad actually, that's one of my first musical memories. It was a carnival, and it was one of those things where you can just go into a booth and they'll give you could sing karaoke and you get the recording back.
Right. Oh, okay.
So Mamas and the Papas, I remember that, and I heard my dad. I'm like, man, Dad's kind of good.
Great harmonies on that song.
Yeah, he did. He did none of those, but but yeah. So I mean, that's my parents were listening to that, and I also have like a memory like being in the Des Plaines Dominick's, hearing "We Built This City."
Starship.
Yeah, dude. I was in like a cart, like being pushed around with my friend Ryan. I remember that song being like, oh, I like music. I was so young. And so that's what my parents were listening to, but myself, when I was like 12 and 13, that's when I kind of started my drum journey, because my grandpa, his father, my great grandpa, came from Ireland and started an Irish bagpipe band called the Shannon Rovers. And my uncle's like, you should join the band. I'm like, cool. I'll wear a kilt. And he's like, be a drummer. Here's my drum. And I like got drum lessons. So I was listening to a lot of like Irish music, like 12 and 13, particularly the Shannon Rovers. Like I love that stuff. So from that, and then, I was really, really involved. There's a venue called the Fireside in Chicago. It's kind of like the Chicago CBGBs. And we would go see bands early on, like Fall Out Boy would play there. It'd be like 50 people. Alkaline Trio would play there. Like all these Rise Against. This is like a scene before these bands became like very, very big bands. And we would go like my friend Johnny and I would go every Tuesday, and a bunch of us would go Tuesday and Thursday. We'd take the train, or our parents would drop us off, and we would just watch shows and discover bands. But it was a crazy time in Chicago because all these bands were just starting to pop up and develop this scene. And I remember the first time like Fall Out Boy brought they sold out the Fireside, and we all had Beatlemania. We thought they were the biggest band on the planet then. It was crazy.
So was there one particular moment, or maybe it was a song or an event or a show that you went to, you said, you know what, I want to do this with my life?
I was just talking about Alkaline Trio, because I never wanted to get on stage. I loved drums. I loved I said I was in the Irish bagpipe band. I was playing kit, and I loved being like behind the scenes. But seeing at the Fireside, seeing Alkaline Trio, I can't remember what it was, but I remember watching that show and Matt Skiba, the singer, and I was falling in love with one of their first record they ever had. And I went home that night. I went to the basement. My brother had a guitar, and I learned like these little octaves. And I tried learning some of their songs, and I started like just practicing. But it was that band that made me want to get on a stage. I'm like,
fantastic.
I just thought they were saving the world.
How about New York City? Tell us about your first time here. Was it playing a show, visiting with your family?
So no, we used to come. Our guitar player in my last band, Empires, he moved out here, and when he moved out here, we all came out here. And he moved to Williamsburg in 2008 or 9, maybe around that time. But yeah, I have a crazy memory about. One of my first crazy memories was there was a White Castle in Williamsburg. It's no longer there. But it was like we were out late. It was like 4 a.m, and all I remember is we walked into the White Castle at 4 o'clock in the morning. We met some people, and from then I don't remember anything. But we woke up in Queens on the floor with a bunch of other kids our age, and we went to a party and everyone crashed on the floor.
Well, as any White Castle visit, it's always late at night, and it tastes amazing. But maybe a couple hours later or late the next day, you kind of regret that you ate it.
That was the first and last White Castle experience because I'm like, man, White Castle is dangerous.
Well, speaking of Chicago, do you know this guy Neil Francis?
I know of Neil. Yeah, the artist.
Yeah, the jam band kind of vibe. Yeah. So, I love Neil. Getting back to mushrooms and Japan. There's a lot about this on your Instagram. Tell us about the mushrooms in Japan.
Okay, so mushrooms. So microdosing. We're not, at this point, I'm not no heroic doses, like real heroic doses, but kind of got into them when my producer and I. I walked into the studio one day and he had some, and I had been like experimenting with just microdosing, which means like you don't really like get high or feel it or anything, just like small doses. And it's like I was saying earlier, it's like the best antidepressant in the world. It honestly just puts a little glitter on your day. But that day, so walking to the studio, we took some mushrooms to start the day.
This is in Nashville?
This is in Nashville, yeah. This is in Nashville, and we just took a couple, like a strong microdose to start the day, and we didn't like start doing anything right away, but letting everything kick in, started zooming a little bit. And Joey, my producer, was just on Reels, Instagram or TikTok or something, and he starts laughing. He's like, dude, you got to see this. And he shows me this dude playing at this place called the Top Beat Club in Japan. This sort of like 60s Chuck Berry kind of rock and roll stuff, and they're slaying it, but the singer is like eating a bowl of ramen. It was like so punk rock. He's eating a bowl of ramen, and the band's like playing, and then he passes the bowl of ramen to the guitar player and just screams something in Japanese, and we're just like, where is this place? So it's in Tokyo, Top Beat Club, and then we discover this band, Johnny Pandora. Johnny is the front man. And the kind of rock and roll they do, they call samurai rock and roll. So like they dance in the park on Sundays and they do the twist, and they look like greasers like every day of their lives. And so yeah, Johnny and his band do this version of samurai rock and roll, and we saw Johnny dancing, and we're like, dude, this guy is straight up Little Richard. Like he's got the bit down. And we're just like, I pick up the guitar and I just start playing this little swing thing, like dank, 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 which I never, ever play that kind of stuff. Maybe that is the mushrooms. Maybe it is also inspired by the dance. And he's like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then start kind of just saying Tokyo Rose, and the first line came out. He's like, that's pretty cool. He finished the next line, and we wrote the song like lightning fast, inspired on this place, the Top Beat Club and Johnny Pandora. And while we're writing it, Joey's like, hey, man, this guy has to be in, we have to go to Tokyo. Like, he's like straight up, he's like, we're going to, Joey also is a part of the, he runs the label. So him saying this, he's like, I'm like, maybe this can actually happen. So he's like, you're going to go to Tokyo. Let's write the treatment. So we start writing this treatment, and it came out like we had the first verse, first chorus. While we're writing the second verse, we're like, okay, so Johnny's going to star in this.
Storyboarding.
The storyboard was the song and the video was happening at the exact same time. It was insane. And we left that day, and I'm like, we had it all out. We're like, first off, I'm like, how is that guy going to say yes? Is John, he's like the coolest dude you've ever seen. And I'm like, there's no way Johnny's going to want to be in this video. And there's no way. I left the studio. I'm like, there's no way they're sending me to Tokyo for this. 3 months later, me and our boy Dave over here, we get on a plane, and we go to Tokyo because Johnny, we talked to him. He's like, I'm in. And he not only is he in, he like found the director, he rented out the Top Beat Club, he loved the song, he loved the premise, and he became the star of the show. And it was crazy.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and we went to Japan, which I don't know. Have you been?
No, but I just rewatched Lost in Translation,
dude.
And I need to go to Tokyo.
You do. I actually regret not watching that on the plane, going there. But yeah, it's like it's crazy. There's takeaways. Like there's so many takeaways, but the first and just on the surface is like it's the cleanest city I've ever been in.
Well, I think you said something. I saw something you commented on or on a post that you did. Going to Tokyo is like you feel like it's 1960, but yet it's the future at the same time.
Dude, that thought hit me. The thought hit me as I left. Well, it was because of it's mainly because of not just Tokyo, but the Top Beat Club and that scene. Because everyone, even you see the extras in there, those kids dress like that every day of their life, like straight up 50s, 60s style. But it felt like I left Los Angeles in 2024, and then when we landed, it was Japan, 1961. And it was awesome, man. And Johnny was the best. Like he, when I didn't know that it wasn't a part of their life all the time. So I was like, man, how long does it take you to do your hair? And like, when do you do this? And he's like, every day of my life. This is my lifestyle. And I'm like, hey, do you have a girl? He's like, I'm married to rock and roll. I'm like, this guy is the best.
He's like a walking press release quote machine, right?
He's it. They're all it.
Oh, and that song, we should say it's called Tokyo
Rose.
Tokyo Rose. Okay, so everybody got to check that out.
Yeah.
You've been at this for quite a while now, and people ask you, I'm sure all the time, what's the coolest thing you've been able to do with Blame My Youth or your previous bands like Empires? Maybe someone you've been able to perform or record with, maybe a place you got to play. What immediately comes to mind? Other than say to this Tokyo thing.
One of my favorite memories today, other than the studio stuff with Joey, it's like that has been like bucket list. I mean, he's one of the best producers in the world, and I get to write music with him. I love that. But other than that, the artist Hardy.
Yeah.
He asked us to go on tour. Like this is end of 2021 or middle of 2021. He's like, yeah, next year. It was April of 2021. He just texted, he goes, you want to go on tour? And I kind of knew him, but not really well. But he loved the band, and he's like, and he was a country artist that's starting to do rock stuff as well.
Yeah.
I'm like, I said yes, of course, but had no expectations because we're a rock band. I'm like, we're gonna go open up a country show. I have no idea what that's gonna be like. But the whole year went by, and he had written all these songs that kind of, his show is such a rock show. But that tour was crazy because not only did he sell it out like right away, like it was at capacity. We're first of three. There's a guy, Jameson Rogers, that was country act that was right after us, direct support. As first of three, any venue we played from 2,000 to 8,000 people or to 10,000 people was at capacity when we walked out there. So we felt like Motley Crue.
Wow.
It was crazy. It felt like we were playing a headline show because his fans were like, I mean, it's really special to have seen that kind of enthusiasm that you don't always get with rock bands. Like any band on the planet, people don't show up that early, not the whole crowd, not the whole place, to see the whole show.
Favorite venues so far?
That we have played? Oh, it was at the end of that show. I played this venue before, but it was my favorite experience at a venue was the Wolf's Den.
Wolf Trap?
Well, no, the Wolf's Den in Mohegan Sun. Yeah. But we played the it's not the Wolf's Den. We played the arena there, and it was my first arena, and it was awesome. Like that was probably my favorite venue we've played. That was my favorite experience because I have never played an arena, and like I said, the whole crowd was there from the beginning, so it felt like they're there for us.
Tell us about the song "The Break." Is this based on actual events? Is this person still in the picture, or is it over?
Okay, so The Break. We were talking about mushrooms, right? So The Break was actually so we talked about Tokyo Rose and the mushrooms, but The Break also I think mushrooms were included in The Break. Sorry, forgive me. I'm getting that confused.
It's hard to remember.
Yes. Drugs, they do things to your brain. Okay, so The Break, I walked into the studio, same guy, Joey, and this is the song that kind of started Joey and I writing music together, because I used to write everything in LA, bring it in, and he would record it, and like we'd write some parts, but so we had 20 songs for an album, all cut and like ready, and we tracked drums to them and everything. It was like pretty rock heavy, like, alternative rock album. And I walk in there, and he is on a Zoom, and I walk in the studio, and he just looks at me. He just puts his hand up, which is never like I'm like, okay, but it was like he didn't even look at me, he just put the hand up. So I'm like, oh, grab a guitar really quick. I go into another room, and I just start writing "She Kiss Me What." I start writing that little thing. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And meanwhile, I've been writing a lot of stuff for other artists and other artists, and I'm like, I don't know who this is for, but it's a cool little thing. And I walk back in there, and he's sitting on the chair now, and he's just scrolling, and his glasses, and I could see the reflection. It doesn't even look at me. It's just he's going through it, because I didn't know at the time that his dog, he found out it might have cancer, and there's like a lot of things going on. And so I walk in, and it's cold, and I sit down on the couch, and I'm like, I got to break the ice. So I just pick up the guitar, and I start playing it, and he has his phone, and he's just sitting there, and I'm playing the chorus, the melody, and some of the lyric. He looks up, and he goes, "That's very good. Keep playing it." And then he starts writing lyrics, which we had never done that before. And so like he started throwing out some lines, and I'm like, oh, start throwing out lines. And then we didn't realize we had that sort of chemistry to go line for line as writers. It used to be just artist, producer. So we finished the song. It was the fastest song we've ever done. But while I was writing it, like I'm thinking about how I named the band Blame My Youth, because I want to be able to tap into that like extra baggage, all the stuff, the heartbreak I had in 2006. That was a big 2006, 2007 was a huge year. I could tap into that at any moment. We could write a song about that right now. And so that's what I was tapping into that, and he's tapping into his thing, and we wrote that song fast. So it was like a perfect storm of, it didn't start off like, hey, I'm going through this right now, but there is a heaviness of the moment, and we tapped into that and then wrote about the truth.
Fantastic. Sean Van Vleet from Blame My Youth is with us. All the music, tour dates, videos at blamemyyouth.com. Sean, thank you so much.
Oh, man, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
This is Out of the Box with your host, Jonathan Clark. Out of the Box, Sunday nights at 9 on Q1043.